What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. You guys asked for this one after I went over the running backs to target in PPR leagues. So here you go. But please, please, please watch the other video so you fully understand my process behind what we're doing here. I will link that in the description so you can easily check that out. Also, if you want access to this data so you can find discrepancies like this on your own, you can download my latest rankings and projections at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. So let's get things started off as usual. Saturday. Yesterday's stat was there were 7 occurrences of a player getting at least 32 touches last season. Only one player shows up on the list 4 times though. I asked you who it was. The answer is not the king, Derrick Henry. The answer is actually Dalvin Cook. At Nate Trotter 4 was the first get that right on Twitter, and Rob 40 Mil was the first get that right on YouTube. Today's stat. What quarterback threw the most incompletions in a game last season? All right, so for those of you who just disregarded my plea, you're like, nope, I'm not watching the first episode, I will give an incredibly short description of what I mean when I say value. A player's value is how many points per game they're expected to score over the top bench option, and I'm assuming in a 12-team league. Today, our goal is to find players being overvalued in PPR leagues because their ADP is going up more than their value is when compared to half PPR. Again, if you want a more in-depth example of that, just watch the first few minutes of episode 1, which is in the description. It has timestamps, so you can go right to the description and view it right away. Last time, again, we went over players who are not seeing enough of a bump, but we're doing the opposite today, looking for players whose ADP rises too much or doesn't move when moving from half to full PPR, but it should be less than that. So either they're going up too much or they're not moving and it should actually be dropping. One of those two things. So we'll start off with Trey Sermon. Sermon's ADP, it stays the same. He's running back 27 in both formats, both half and full PPR, yet I have him projected as 0.4 points per game less valuable in full PPR, which drops him 4 running back spots. And that might not seem like a lot, especially if you didn't watch the first one, but it's a ton. It is more than any difference in episode 1, and it's the largest difference in this video. When you have a player who is 4 running back spots less valuable, they should not be going at the exact same spot in half and full PPR. And honestly, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, we all see the upside. Like, I'm not here saying Trey Sermon's going to be bad this season. That is not the takeaway from anyone on this video, okay? The point of this video is to say, when we're transitioning formats, we've got to see a change in ADP if their value is changing when we switch the formats. So I think Sermon could be great. He could take over as the 1A to Mostert's 1B. They will not have a feature back, but if he's the 1A and they're running the ball, 500 times, like that latest report, like they're running the ball more than any other team, yeah, he's going to be valuable. But taking him at the same spot in full PPR is absurd. He's very clearly worse, and the projection drop shows that. The 49ers running backs had a combined 135 targets last season, 46 to McKinnon, 29 to Juszczyk. I mean, I counted him in running backs, even though he's technically a fullback. Jeff Wilson had 28, Mostert 19, and there were like a few others that mixed in for like single digits. You have to think that unless they have one feature back, which is not going to happen, no one has a real chance to like surpass what McKinnon did last season, which wasn't all that great. He ranked 21st among running backs in targets. So I'm not saying you just cannot draft Sermon. I'm not saying that for anyone in this video. I want that to be very, very clear. But if we're looking at these different formats, like if you play in multiple leagues and you like Trey Sermon and you're not in a full PPR in all of them, it would be best for you to go to the half PPR league or especially the standard league if you're in different formats and take him there and then take someone else in full because his ADP is not going down and there's just no way he's getting these receptions. I have a feeling Trey Lance will be the starting quarterback. I don't want to give an exact date. I don't think it's week 1. Some people think it's going to be week 1. I don't think it's going to be, But I think come week 4, week 5, I think Lance is going to be the quarterback at that point, and the receptions are just not going to be there for any of the running backs. Again, they want to be the most run-heavy team in football, and Lance is a mobile quarterback. So on plays where Jimmy G would have thrown a dump off, Lance is going to scramble, and that's, of course, going to hurt the value of Sermon. So I really think he should be seeing a drop-off, and he's not. Another running back, very, very similar situation, is Zack Moss. He's being taken at the exact same spot as well in half and full PPR, despite dropping 3 running back spots in value when changing formats. This one should also make sense for the exact same reasons. Moss has a better chance of being featured. I could see Buffalo switching to one feature back, whereas I cannot see the 49ers doing that. But Josh Allen is also an extremely mobile quarterback who is just not going to throw very many checkdowns to his running backs. They only had, talking about the Bills running backs as a unit, 73 total targets last season. 68 of those went to Singletary and Moss. So sure, Moss could get virtually all of the targets and then be more valuable in full PPR, but that's not going to happen. It is so unrealistic to expect Moss to get like 80, 90% of the workload and just get all of the targets, that it's wishful thinking he's going to be more valuable in full PPR. We all want Zack Moss to break out. He is the better pure runner. He is better in the receiving game. But there is nothing that indicates Buffalo wants to feature him. You will see reports that he could be the guy. You will see reports that he gets 60, 70% of the workload. But that's could. Still, most likely scenario is that he's splitting work with the other running backs. And even if, that is the most important point here, even if he's going on the field like 70% of the time, that still doesn't mean he's getting those receptions. So I'm not completely out on him in standard, half, full PPR. Like, I'm not completely out. I'll take him if he falls a lot. But I don't think I've taken him in a single mock draft this season, because I do believe people are overvaluing that reception upside because they see reports that he could take over as the guy, and they're assuming feature back means a ton of receptions. It doesn't in Buffalo, and people are not accounting for that. Another running back to avoid is A.J. Dillon. Now, this one I think is the weirdest, because I say A.J. Dillon, everyone's like, yeah, you can't take him in full PPR because he's literally not going to catch any passes no matter what happens with Aaron Jones, no matter what happens with Aaron Rodgers. And yet he as well is being taken in the exact same spot. He's the running back 40 in both formats, and he actually moves up. He's overall 116th player in half PPR, 114th in full PPR. But he loses half a point per game in value when switching to full PPR. That's a pretty big number. I don't get it. I mean, when Aaron Jones is there, Dillon has like no target upside, like zero. He might not even see a target while Aaron Jones is healthy. And then let's assume that just everything works out for A.J. Dillon. Aaron Rodgers stays, Aaron Jones gets hurt, he's the featured back. He's still probably only getting like 1 or 2 targets, and that would make him more valuable in half PPR. So you have a running back who under both situations needs something to go their way, but even if that happens, he is still more valuable in one of the formats, and it's the format he's technically being taken 2 spots back in. That makes absolutely no sense. Maybe he just needs to move up more in half PPR and the full PPR is correct, but I think it's the opposite. I think people are overvaluing what the ceiling would be in full PPR and that he needs to be going further back than he is. There are other names that are worth mentioning and I will go over, but no one that's crazy. So I do think those first 3 were like, I hope it was 3. I think it was like 3 players this went over. I think most of them made sense and they were incorrect. They should be moving down and they're just not. The rest of these, the differences weren't that big, but I just want to go over them because they are incorrect. So first up, Kareem Hunt. He moves up 1 when moving from half to full PPR, but my projections have him as 1 spot less valuable, so there's a difference of 2 there. Even with Chubb missing a month last season and Hunt playing in all 16 weeks, he only ranked 17th among running backs in targets. I think people are anchoring to his days in Kansas City and not realizing that he only had more than three receptions twice in his last 18 games, or at least the 18 games he played last season. I think it was actually his last 19 games technically. This is a run-first offense, and the fact that Odell got hurt, Chubb got hurt, and we're still looking at Hunt playing all 16 weeks and being 17th among running backs and targets, I really think people are overvaluing how many targets he's going to get. Again, I'm not saying you can't draft him because I think he's an incredible upside pick if that's what you're looking for at that pick. But valuing him higher in full PPR to me says that people really do think he's going to be getting like 4 and 5 receptions per game. Like that's where his strong suit is. And it's just not the case. He's probably not going to be amongst the league leaders in targets no matter what happens, even if Chubb goes down. And if Chubb doesn't go down, the reception upside is still capped for Kareem Hunt, especially as they get back Odell, because he's obviously going to take more targets than the backups they had before. Also, I talked about Hunt, I don't know, it was sometime this week. I don't remember which day it was, maybe in the Thursday breakdown. It was probably a Thursday breakdown. One thing I didn't mention in that is basically that, like, I don't want to say he got super lucky last season, but he finished 18th in points per game while scoring 11 touchdowns. So the same as Aaron Jones. And, like, 11 touchdowns is, going to be amongst the league leaders. And he's a backup running back, right? And so over time, if you played that season out a million times, that definitely fell on the luckier side, scoring 11 touchdowns, and especially scoring as many receiving touchdowns as he did, not having that many receptions. So I think over time, he's probably going to score less than that. He should have been more of like a high-end running back 3 last season. And again, that wasn't a season where he did have Chubb go down for a month and he got those games without him. So maybe we're overvaluing Hunt a little bit too much this season. Another running back is Michael Carter. He shows up on the list. My projections have him gaining 0.1 points per game in value, moving from half to full PPR, but he moves up 2 running back spots. I can maybe buy into this one if the reason people are taking him earlier is because they genuinely believe he's going to be a pass down specialist. He's going to take some early down work, but then also going to be in for all the third downs. But there's for sure a chance that the Jets still just use a rotation. And so it could be a split, but not a split where he's getting all the third down, just a split where it's like he's not even in on drives. Maybe Tevin Coleman just takes a drive, and then Carter takes a drive, and then someone else takes a drive. Like, we don't know for sure that he's going to be the passing down specialist. And I think him moving up, people taking him more aggressively in full PPR, is assuming that's going to happen. We need to remember that this is still the team that gave Frank Gore 203 touches last season, despite 3.7 yards per touch. It is just a losing strategy to assume that the Jets are going to make logical decisions. So giving Carter a bump in PPR, and therefore assuming that he gets a good amount of receptions, could come back to bite us. I'm not saying that it won't happen, but he should basically be viewed as the exact same in both formats, and he probably shouldn't be moving up in full PPR. The only other name that stands out on the list was Jamaal Williams. This, of course, is because the Lions have literally no receiving talent. I mean, it's not great. Like, I'm sure one of Perriman or Tyrell Williams is going to be their one, is going to be their top guy. Amon-Ra St. Brown, like, he's going to be the slot receiver. But they don't have a lot of talent, right? So people are expecting Hawkinson, Swift, and Williams to soak up a lot of targets. But I said this maybe like a week or two ago when I was talking about TJ Hawkinson. Just because we, can't figure out where all the targets are going to go doesn't mean we can just start giving them all to our favorite players, right? Just because we can't figure out who's going to be their 1, 2, and 3 wide receiver doesn't mean we can just take all those targets and just load them up on Hawkinson and load them up on their backup running back. Like, someone is still going to get the looks. They're still going to play wide receivers, and just using the argument that everyone else is bad, so this guy's going to get a ton of targets, typically doesn't work out. Now, it works out when we're talking about like Calvin Ridley because he's elite. He's a fantastic wide receiver. And so when we have a stud receiver on a team and everyone else stinks, yeah, they're going to load up on targets because targets are earned and they're going to earn them. But you do still have to get open, and the offense has to work in a way where those targets are available to you. You know, I've seen it floated around that Swift and Williams could both be used in the slot, could be used out wide, you're going to get a ton of targets. Realistically, we hear that every single offseason about multiple running backs, and then it basically happens for like Christian McCaffrey and maybe one other running back. Teams just don't use running backs in the slot. They don't put them out wide on a significant number of plays. And so we need to stop thinking, oh, well, maybe Jamaal Williams will play wide receiver. No, he's not going to play wide receiver. A wide receiver is going to play wide receiver. And yes, they could have more 2 running back sets or something like that. But even in 2 running back sets, don't you think DeAndre Swift is going to be the top target? Don't you think their wide receivers and TJ Hawkinson are going to get targets over Jamaal Williams? And so just saying that they don't have a lot of receiving threats, that Jamaal Williams will get a ton of targets, that's simply not going to happen. St. Brown is their slot receiver. They're likely going to use Williams and Perriman on the outside. That does not leave very many snaps for Williams to play wide receivers. And if that's the case, we do have a backup running back, even if he's good at catching, on a poor offense, on a team that is not going to win a whole ton. They're not going to score a ton of points, not going to be a lot of touchdowns. So I'm not saying fade Williams. I actually think Williams is a quality pick later in drafts, because what if Swift goes down and he's a feature back? What if he does get more work than you think? Not necessarily in the receiving game, but what if he does mix in for some carries? What if they don't want to feature Swift and they do want to use him? Because let's be honest, Jamaal Williams gets more work on every single season or in every single season than we think he's going to have. But overvaluing him in PPR because you expect or you don't know where the target's going to be, so maybe they go to Williams, that's not the best strategy. He should probably just go in the exact same point and half in full PPR. And so if you want to target him, it is still better to do so. And I do think you should actually take him late. It's just better to do so in half PPR because you're paying less of a price and you're getting the same value. And honestly, that's it. There weren't very many names at the top of this list, which I guess is a good thing. It means that players are being priced appropriately and we're not being overly aggressive on anyone. The only 2 studs that did show up were Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor. Taylor should move down by a little bit, but he doesn't. And then Henry should move down by 2, but he only moves down by 1. But they were really, really minor differences. I mean, Henry should move down by 2, but he's 0.1 points in value behind Barkley. And so it was like, I mean, what? If he'd had a few more points in his projection, it would have been the same. It really wasn't too much of a difference. So I didn't really want to mention them because you're really splitting hairs at the top. And I wanted to go over the guys who actually did kind of see a difference because, I mean, there's not that much to talk about, right? Like everyone knows that Derrick Henry is slightly less valuable in full PPR, but he could also run for over 2,000 rushing yards. And so that kind of takes care of it. So those are players that you might want to avoid in full PPR, or at least if you're in a full PPR and a half PPR league, maybe you should be targeting them more aggressively in the half PPR and leave the full PPR league to other players because their value is not dropping as much as it should be. Let me know if you want to see the wide receiver version of this video. I might have to move around some stuff in the schedule, but I could probably get it done. And make sure you do check out our website, especially if you want to find your own discrepancies or you just want to see my take on every single player. That, my friends, is the end of this one. Hope you all enjoy. If you did, then how about hitting the like button? And how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? But thanks for watching.